Okay, here we go again. Another chapter of Dorian. Kind of a brief intro and show update. There definitely hasn't been as much Stormer Show variety as there used to be, and part of that is due to life circumstance, and part of that is due to me. Yeah, I'd say it's mainly due to life circumstance, me being in a different place physically than I was. That's changed a lot of the dynamic of my streams. I don't have the same speed internet, and that makes it harder for me to stream gameplay. Yeah, I can try it, but when I do, what I've seen is that I get frame drops and stuff like that. So we'll just kind of have to see what happens. In the meantime, I think I'm gonna have to stick to just chatting streams, which I haven't even had those. I mainly just had these art book dive streams, which seem okay for the time being. They give me a chance to talk to you guys, my audience, and share my thoughts on the book. Sapiens is another one that I'm reading on and off right now. But yeah, I'll just keep thinking and looking at different ideas for things that I can try on stream. Speaking of things that I've done on stream, the music streams, I tell you guys the truth, I just have not been playing piano. Like, I haven't been playing piano at all, let alone on stream. And I'll kind of just see where life takes me in the next week or so. The piano, it's something that takes up a lot of space. And so I want to be in a place where I have the space to set up that piano. So yeah, once I get to a place where I can consistently practice piano again, I can make a return to showcasing that on stream. But in the meantime, I'd say please enjoy my book, my group readings, my book dives, whatever you want to call them, and yeah, my just chatting streams if and when I'll have them. So thank you for following me with the Dorian Gray series. I hope you've been enjoying it, and let's continue. Hard to say what's next on the agenda for my book series or even channel in general, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, we're on chapter 5 of Dorian. Oscar Wilde, the writer. And yesterday in chapter 4, we got to see a little bit more about Dorian's description of Sybil. Her name was Sybil Vane. Sibyllvane. And we get the chance to see how their relationship grows, develops, and ultimately manifests in their marriage at the end of the chapter. So, let's continue in chapter 5. Mother, mother, I'm so happy, whispered the girl, burying her face in the lap of the faded, tired-looking woman who, with back turned to the shrill, intrusive light, was sitting in. Yeah, and let me open my windows too, just in case, so I can get more light in. Hold on, guys, hold on. Speaking of intrusive light, yeah. Yeah, she says, "I'm so happy." Burying her face in the lap of the faded, tired-looking woman who, with back turned to the shrill, intrusive light, was sitting in the one armchair that their dingy sitting room contained. "I'm so happy," she repeated, "and you must be happy too." So she must be telling her mom about her her marriage to Dorian. Oh, sorry, her engagement. She has not yet been married. Her engagement. Mrs. Vane winced and put her thin, bismuth whitened, that's grayish white mineral element used in pharmaceuticals and theatrical makeup, hands on her daughter's head. Some of the references in this book, it's like, we just have to try to imagine what it was like. Like there was a clock that it mentions that makes a reference to King Louis XIV, and I assumed it was more like a grandfather clock. This bismuth whitening. Let me see if I can find a picture, guys. Yeah, let me see what comes up for bismuth whitened hands. Yeah, some of the stuff, some of these references are dated, is what I'm trying to say. It's like, it's hard to find information about how it was. It's like some things are just lost to time. And I think some of the references in this book are that way, where it's like you can't find on Google what it looked like or the way it was. It's like I can try to look at. Let me look at the definition. Yeah, it's used as a pigment, but maybe if I just look up bismuth, it's crystals. Yeah, they look pretty cool, guys. I mean, let me see if I can show you guys. It looks multicolored in this search. Slight pink tinge. I assume it's used to the way makeup is used, like to change the way people look. Yeah, I'm assuming it's used as like a makeup in this case. Okay. Alright, but yeah, she's got that on her hands, that metal. Hopefully it's not cancer causing. Yeah, she's got that on her hands. She puts the hands on her daughter's head. Yeah, again, hopefully it's not cancer cousin. Happy, she echoed. I'm only happy, Sybil, when I see you act. You must not think of anything but your acting. Yeah, it's like she's saying, like, don't let this distract you. Focus on your art. Throw yourself into your medium. I mean, it makes sense. Mr. Isaacs has been very good to us, and we owe him money. The girl looked up and pouted. Money, mother? She cried. What does money matter? Love is more than money. Cue the Beatles. Can't buy me love. Everybody tells me so. Can't buy me love. No, 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 no. And yeah, Sybil has the exact same sentiment here on this page 64 in chapter 5. Mr. Isaacs has advanced us £50 to pay off our debts and to get a proper outfit for James. You must not forget that, Sybil. £50 is a very large sum. Mr. Isaacs has been most considerate. It's like, kind of like, don't forget where you came from kind of thing. It's like he believed in you when you had nothing. Don't forget him now. He's not a gentleman, mother, and I hate the way he talks to me, said the girl, rising to her feet and going over to the window. I think there's some value in both ways of thinking. Like, I think it's important to be loyal and to pay tribute to people who have invested in you, but by a similar token, it's like there is such a thing as natural talent, natural ability. Independence. Like seeing the value. It's a bit of a balance. It's like seeing the value in others and seeing the value in yourself. And Sybil's discovering new things about herself, which I think is awesome. It's like don't let your past hold you back. Is the other way of thinking, basically. Like don't let your past define your future. I hate the way he talks to me. I don't know how we can manage without him, answered the elder woman querulously. Let me look it up to make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. I think it's used, the word that's here is used similarly to inquisitively. Let's see how it's pronounced. Querulously. Querulously. Like, in a complaining way. Let me see the pronunciation. Querulously. Like in a complaining way. It's hard to say. That's probably the reason why I haven't heard it used all that much. Querulously. So her mother's emphasizing the contribution that Mr. Isaacs has made to them financially. We'll see what Sybil says. She's probably gonna respond in kind, I'm guessing. She's gonna argue basically back. Sybil Vane tossed her head and laughed. Ha! We don't want him anymore, Mother. Prince Charming rules life for us now. Yes, and as you might recall, she has referred to Dorian that way in one of their first interactions. back when they were first talking to each other, she says, quite simply, "You look more like a prince. I must call you Prince Charming." And I believe that I'm trying to see the timing of it. Yeah, I think it was when they first met. Yeah, it's when they first met. So Mr. Isaacs introduces Dorian to Sybil, and then she drops that bomb on him. "You look more like a prince. I must call you Prince Charming." Let me do it. It's like she's, letting him know she likes him a lot. Sybil saying Dorian's in charge now. And I think a lot of young women are that way. It's like, maybe not just young women, like practically anyone. It's like, here's this old guy, here's this new guy, he's better looking. Like, I'm gonna go with him now. Now I have what I need. Then she paused. A rose shook in her blood and shallowed her cheeks. Quick breath parted the petals of her lips. Metaphors. Yeah, Oscar Wilde definitely has a way with words. Likening them to plants, to rose petals. They trembled. Some southern wind of passion swept over her and stirred the dainty folds of her dress. "I love him," she said simply. Foolish child," was the paraphrase flung in answer. The waving of crooked, false jeweled fingers gave an added grotesqueness to the words. Yeah, I feel like a mother can be a suitor's harshest critic. It's like, he's not right for you. The girl laughed again. The joy of a caged bird was in her voice. Her eyes caught the melody and echoed in radiance. Then closed for a moment as though to hide their secret. When they opened, the mist of a dream had passed across them. Thin-lipped wisdom spoke at her from the worn chair, hinted at prudence, quoted from that book of cowardice whose author apes the name of common sense. She did not listen. She was free in her prison of passion. Her prince, Prince Charming, was with her. She'd called on memory to remake him. She'd sent her soul to search for him, and it had brought him back. His kiss burned again upon her mouth. Her eyelids were warm with his breath. It's like they're both fond of each other. Like Dorian was showing up at a lot of her plays, and he was very fond of her, and it's like once they became introduced, she was able to return his feelings. So she's got feelings for Dorian. Yeah. Then wisdom altered its method and spoke of espial and discovery. This young man might be rich. If so, marriage should be thought of. It's like financial independence. Yeah. It's like, if he's got money, marry him. I guess it makes sense. Like, money, it makes the world go round, and it was just as true then as it is now. It's like, they owe a debt to Mr. Isaacs because of his financial support. And Sybil's also hoping that she will gain financial independence through marrying Dorian. But I don't think it's the case. I don't think Dorian has wealth. I think the wealth that he has is in his looks, in his natural gifts. Things that he was born with. Almost kind of like a young model, but he's not really a model. He just looks really good. If so, marriage should be thought of. Against the shell of her ear broke the waves of worldly cunning. The arrows of craft shot by her. She saw the thin lips moving and smiled. Suddenly she felt the need to speak. The wordy silence troubled her. "Mother, mother," she cried. "Why does he love me so much? I know why I love him. I love him because he is what love himself should be. But what does he see in me? I am not worthy of him." And I don't know, I think Sybil needs to give herself a little credit, right? She's an actor. She's an actress. She's got talent. She's got good looks. Yeah, she's got plenty to offer. It's like, don't sell yourself short, girl. You got a lot going on for you. And yet why? I cannot tell, though. I feel so much beneath him. I don't feel humble. I feel proud, terribly proud. Mother, did you love my father as I love Prince Charming? A good question to ask. The elder woman grew pale beneath the coarse powder that daubed her cheeks. The elder woman grew pale beneath the coarse powder that daubed her cheeks, and her dry lips twitched with a spasm of pain. Sybil rushed to her, flung her arms around her neck, and kissed her. Forgive me, Mother. I know it pains you to talk about Father, but it only pains you because you loved him so much. Don't look so sad. I'm as happy today as you were 20 years ago. Let me be happy forever. Isn't that all anybody wants? Is to just be happy all the time? Yeah, I don't think anyone ever wanted to be sad all the time. But I think if everyone was happy all the time, it would be a pretty boring world. We need downs just as much as we need ups. Because if everyone was happy all the time, it would look like God. I don't know. Hard to think of a good comparison, like maybe Chuck E. Cheese. My child, you're far too young to think of falling in love. Besides, what do you know of this young man? You don't even know his name. The whole thing is most inconvenient. And really, when James is going away to Australia and I have so much to think of, I must say that you should have shown more consideration. However, as I've said before, he's rich. Who's James? I don't know. Hopefully she reveals that. Yeah. Her mom's giving the classic advice, which is marry into money. But money isn't everything. Don't forget that, guys watching from home. Money is not everything. And even women too. Money is not everything. As I have wistfully prayed and hoped for in, I believe, my Sapiens breakdown, we may get to a point in time where we're able to transcend the concept of money. I think that'll be the next evolution of mankind. Uh, the next proverbial stage of the human race. Once we're able to cast off the concept of money, but it may be, 1,000 years before that happens. Who knows? We're still trying to figure out, you know, why billionaires have so much money and why there's so many poor people in the world. Okay. Mother, let me be happy. Mrs. Vane glanced at her, and with one of those false theatrical gestures that so often become a mode of second nature to a stage player, clasped her in her arms. At this moment the door opened, and a young lad with rough brown hair came into the room. He was thick-set of figure, and his hands and feet were large, and somewhat clumsy in movement. He was not so finely bred as his sister. Yeah, sometimes that happens, where it's like one sibling gets all the good looks. Kind of sad when that happens, really. You feel bad for the brother. One would hardly have guessed the close relationship that existed between them. It's like you couldn't even tell they were related. She had so many good looks and he didn't have any. Mrs. Vane fixed her eyes on him and intensified her smile. She mentally elevated her son to the dignity of an audience. She felt sure that the tableau was interesting. This must be her brother. James must be her brother. You might keep some of your kisses for me, Sybil, I think, said the lad, with a good-natured grumble. But you don't like being kissed, Jim. Yeah, I guess Jim is his nickname. She cried. You were a dreadful old bear. And she ran across the room and hugged him. James Vane looked into his sister's face with tenderness. I want you to come out with me for a walk, Sybil. I don't suppose I shall ever see this horrid London again. I'm sure I don't want to. It's like he's going to Australia and he's not coming back. I think, yeah, I've never been to Australia, but it seems cool. I've never been to London either, but it seems like if you've been there, like, your whole life, and you want to try somewhere else, Australia seems a pretty good place to go. Did they even have the Opera House back then? Let me look it up. How big is it? How old is it? Okay, yeah, it's only 62 years old. So, yeah, wow. So yeah, they didn't even have the Opera House back then in Australia. He must have been going to see something else. But yeah, maybe he just wanted to change the scenery. He's like, I'm tired of Big Ben. My son, don't say such dreadful things, murmured Miss Vane, taking up a tawdry theatrical dress with a sigh and beginning to patch it. She felt a little disappointed that he had not joined the group. It would have increased the theatrical picturesqueness of the situation. Why not, Mother? I mean it. It's like, I think a lot of moms are this way, where it's like empty nest syndrome. It's like they don't want to let go of their sons and daughters. It's like, don't travel, I may never see you again. It's like, well, if you don't, that's how the cookie crumbles, as they say. You pain me, my son. I trust you will return from Australia in a position of affluence. I believe there's no society of any kind in the colonies, nothing that I would call society. So when you've made your fortune, you must come back and assert yourself in London. It's like go there, make some money, and then come back. Don't get lost in the land down under. Society. We live in a society. No, it actually just says society. Society, muttered the lad. I don't want to know anything about that. I should like to make some money to take you and Sybil off the stage. I hate it. And yeah, I think we've all felt that way at some point in time. It's like, it's like, why is this the way this is? Like, like let's get up a bunch of money and then use it to quit our day jobs and do something else. Yeah, and stage life, I think stage life is, it would probably be most similar to the way Broadway musicals are now, and the way that concerts and not movies, but yeah, like concerts and musical shows are now, where it's like there was a lot of touring back then and a lot of travel, and you go from like theater to theater performing the play, and that lifestyle can kind of wear on you, where it's like you have to perform every single night, or you have to perform so many times. It's like after each performance, it's like it's kind of, I think it's kind of like that song by Bob Seger. It's like Turn the Page. It's like there I go, playing the star again. There I go, turn the page. It's like sometimes you just want to take a break, and I guess nowadays it's less the case because, like in movies, we have the ability now to record the scenes, edit them into the movie. It's not like Ryan Reynolds, for example, in Deadpool has to like keep playing that role over and over again to different audiences. It's like it's recorded once now, and it's like everyone can see it at one time. And then Ryan Reynolds can like take his, bags of money and like go on a vacation to, wherever. He can go on a vacation to like the Maldives or something, and everyone else can enjoy his movie. It's like that's not how it was back then. Yeah, that's not how it was. Oh, Jim, said Sybil, laughing. How unkind of you. But are you really going for a walk with me? That'll be nice. I was afraid you were going to say goodbye to some of your friends, to Tom Hardy, who gave you that hideous pipe, or Ned Langton, who makes fun of you for smoking it. It's very sweet of you to let me have your last afternoon. Where shall we go? Let us go to the park. I'm too shabby, he answered, frowning. Only swell people go to the park. Nonsense, Jim, she whispered, stroking the sleeve of his coat. He hesitated for a moment. Very well, he said at last, but don't be too long dressing. She danced out the door. One could hear her singing as she ran upstairs. Her little feet pattered overhead. He walked up and down the room 2 or 3 times. Then he turned to the still figure in the chair. Mother, are my things ready? He asked. It's like he's pacing around. I think maybe he's anxious about the trip to Australia. I'm not really sure why he hasn't packed his own things. He's like, hey ma, you packed my stuff? I'll be right back, guys. I gotta use the bathroom. My shirt with the dang deodorant stains. You can see them. It's from the dang deodorant I wear. I can change my shirt. Do I want to and do I need to? Sure, I'll change to... Well, let me see what I can come up with. Be right back. It's a shame too, guys, because it sure reminds me of a show that I went to, Counting Crows. Alright, let me try Samus Aran. Okay, I'm back. Their shirt's a little bit better. I got it from Nintendo. Back in one of their award, programs. Okay. Where was I? Yeah, he's like, "Hey, Ma, pack my stuff." "Quite ready, James," she answered, keeping her eyes on her work. For some months past, she felt ill at ease when she was alone with this rough, stern son of hers. Her shallow, secret nature was troubled when their eyes met. She used to wonder if he suspected anything. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's more common when someone's been through a lot. Like, the more stuff you've been through, I think the more tension it creates on that mother-son relationship. And I think that's the case between James and his mom. He's like, "I'm not as good looking as Sybil. Why was I born?" He asks his mom. The silence, for he made no other observation, became intolerable to her. She began to complain. Women defend themselves by attacking, just as they attack by sudden and strange surrenders. Pretty astute observation by Oscar Wilde. It's like, yeah, attack or default. That's women for you right there. I hope you will be contented, James, with your seafaring life," she said. "You must remember that it is your own choice. You might have entered a solicitor's office. Solicitors, those are lawyers who do not argue in court, are a very respectable class, and in the country often dine with the best families." "I hate offices and I hate clerks," he replied. "But you're quite right. I've chosen my own life. All I say is watch over Sybil. Don't let her come to any harm, Mother. You must watch over her. Based on what they've said already, we can conclude that the father has passed away. The mom is a widow of James and Sybil. And I think that's why James is saying it, because he's basically the man of the house now. He's the one who would watch over his family. Now with him gone, it'll fall to the mom. Or I think probably, in a more practical sense, Dorian. Dorian will take the new helm. "James, you really talk very strangely. Of course I watch over Sybil." It's like, what do you mean? Once you go away, I'm going to stop caring about your sister? "I hear a gentleman comes every night to the theater and goes behind to talk to her." "Is that right? What about that?" It's like, well, you haven't had the chance to meet Dorian Gray, James. It's like, give Dorian a little bit of credit, okay? He's the guy that the book is named after, okay? Hey, Board Fox.
You're speaking about things that you don't understand, James. In the profession, we're accustomed to receive a great deal of most gratifying attention. I myself used to receive many am I saying it right? Bouquets? Yeah, I think so, bouquets. Like a bouquet of flowers. At one time. That was when acting was really understood. As for Sybil, I don't know at present whether her attachment is serious or not, but there is no doubt that the young man in question is a perfect gentleman. He's always most polite to me. Besides, he has the appearance of being rich, and the flowers he sends are lovely. Mom for you. It's like he's good looking, and I think he's got cash, so he's good with me. You don't know his name, though, said the lad harshly. No, answered his mother, with a placid expression on her face. He's not yet revealed his real name, and I think it's quite romantic of him. He's probably a member of the aristocracy. I hope I'm saying it right. Aristocracy. Yeah, aristocracy. I think he's like, prince or something like that. They don't tell you their names because they're men of mystery. They like to keep that. They like to keep the. What's it called? Keep an air of mystery. James, and yeah, maybe he is a member of the aristocracy. I need to slow down when I say that. Aristocracy. It's like he's the wealthy class. The rich. Wherever they may be. James Vane bit his lip. Watch over Sybil, mother, he cried. Watch over her. My son, you distress me very much. Sybil's always under my special care. Of course, if this gentleman is wealthy, there is no reason why she should not contract an alliance with him. I trust he is one of the aristocracy. There I go again. Aristocracy. He has all the appearance of it, I must say. It might be a most brilliant marriage for Sybil. They would make a charming couple. His good looks are really quite remarkable. Everybody notices them. Like, yeah, he stands out because he's really good looking. It has not yet been established how much, if any, wealth Dorian has. The lad muttered something to himself and drummed on the window pane with his coarse fingers. He just turned round to say something when the door opened and Sybil ran in. How serious you both are, she cried. What is the matter? Nothing, he answered. I suppose one must be serious sometimes. Goodbye, mother. I'll have dinner at 5 o'clock. Everything is packed except my shirts, so you need not trouble. It's like everyone else is putting Dorian under the microscope. Like his mom is, her brother is. It's like, is he really all that in a bag of chips? Or, is he just good looking? Goodbye, my son, she answered with a bow of strange stateliness. Yeah, stateliness. Yeah, Board Fox, it's like beautiful people. Beautiful people and rich people. Will they inherit the earth? Who knows? She was extremely annoyed at the tone he had adopted with her, and there was something in his look that had made her feel afraid. There was something in his look that made her feel afraid. Kiss me, mother, said the girl. Her flower-like lips touched the withered cheek and warmed its frost. My child, cried Mrs. Vane, looking up to the ceiling in search of an imaginary gallery. Come, Sybil, said her brother, impatiently. He hated his mother's affectations. You can tell Mrs. Vane is a daughter's... Yeah, her daughter's the apple of her eye. her son's the one who's like, he's like, I'm not the, the chosen one. I'm not my mother's favorite. They went out into the flickering wind-blown sunlight and strolled down the dreary Euston Road. Euston Road's a street in northern London lined with inexpensive lodgings. The passers-by glanced in wonder at the sullen, heavy youth, who, in coarse, ill-fitting clothes, was in the company of such a graceful, refined-looking girl. He was like a common gardener walking with a rose. Jim frowned from time to time when he caught the inquisitive glance of some stranger. He had that dislike of being stared at which comes on geniuses late in life, and never leaves the commonplace. I think, yeah, I definitely have that. I think a lot of people have that. It's like, why are you staring at me? Kind of like that line in Sixth Sense. It's like, stop looking at me. Like sometimes it's just annoying. It's like what are you looking at? Some people do not like being the center of attention, basically. And yeah, James is that way. I am too, to some extent. Sybil, however, was quite unconscious of the effect she was producing. Her love was trembling in laughter on her lips. She was thinking of Prince Charming, and that she might think of him all the more. She did not talk of him, but prattled on about the ship in which Jim was going to sail, about the gold he was certain to find, about the wonderful heiress whose life he was to save from the wicked red-shirted bushrangers. It's like, like he's gonna go to Australia and, marry a girl there. He's gonna find his fortune there. It's like he'll find everything that he's been waiting for in Australia. That's kind of like a optimistic way of thinking, right? It's like I'm gonna travel to Europe. I'm gonna meet, a cute French girl. We're gonna get married. I'll come back with bags of money from my pastry shop. Sounds nice. Sounds nice. But for him, it's Australia. Yeah, Board Fox. Exactly. Exactly. Some people love the what's called the limelight, and some people are like, yeah, it's okay for them to not have everyone looking at them. They went. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, he's gonna find the girl and the fortune in Australia. The bushrangers are outlaws living in the woods, like Australian bandits. For he was not to remain a sailor or a supercargo. That's an officer on a commercial ship who oversees details concerning the cargo, or whatever he was going to be. Oh no, a sailor's existence was dreadful. Fancy being cooped up on a horrid ship with the hoarse, humpbacked waves trying to get in, and a black wind blowing the masts down, tearing the sails into long, screaming ribands. He was to leave the vessel at Melbourne, bid a polite goodbye to the captain, and go off once to the gold fields. Before a week was over, he was to come across a large nugget of pure gold, and the largest nugget that had ever been discovered, and bring it down to the coast in a wagon guarded by 6 mounted policemen. The bushrangers were to attack them 3 times, and to be defeated with immense slaughter. Or no, he was not going to the gold fields at all. They were horrid places where men got intoxicated and shot each other in bar rooms, and used bad language. He was to be a nice sheep farmer, and one evening he was riding home. He was to see the beautiful heiress being carried off by a robber on a black horse, and give chase and rescue her. Of course, she would fall in love with him, and he with her, and they would get married and come home and live in an immense house in London. Yes, there were delightful things in store for him. Like she's wishful thinking for her brother. Like he's not going to die face down in the muck over there in the Australian bush. Heck no. There's a lot of good things waiting for him over there. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens to him. Yes, there were delightful things in store for him, but he must be very good and not lose his temper or spend his money foolishly. She was only a year older than he was, but she knew so much more of life. He must be sure also to write to her by every mail and to say his prayers each night before he went to sleep. God was very good and would watch over him. She would pray for him too, and in a few years he would come back quite rich and happy. The lad listened sulkily to her and made no answer. He was heartsick at leaving home. Yet it was not this alone that made him gloomy and morose. Inexperienced though he was, he had still a strong sense of the danger of Sybil's position. The young dandy who was making love to her could mean her no good. He was a gentleman, and he hated him for that, hated him through some curious race instinct for which he could not account, and which for that reason was all the more dominant in him. It's like he hates Dorian because Dorian is everything that he's not. Like Dorian is good looking. He's not good looking. Dorian is a gentleman. He is ill-tempered, quick to anger. It's like James is like, what's that jerk got that I don't got? And why is he trying to run away with my sister? He was conscious also of the shallowness and vanity of his mother's nature, and in that saw infinite peril for Sybil and Sybil's happiness. Yeah, I'd say so. His mom is very preoccupied with Sybil marrying rich. Children begin by loving their parents. As they grow older, they judge them. Sometimes they forgive them. Wilde recycles the phrase, sometimes they forgive them, in his 1893 play, A Woman of No Importance, as rarely, if ever, did they forgive them. His mother, he had something on his mind to ask of her, something that he had brooded on for many months of silence. A chance phrase that he had heard at the theater, a whispered sneer that had reached his ears in one night as he waited at the stage door, had set loose a train of horrible thoughts. He remembered it as if it had been a lash of a hunting crop across his face. His brows knit together into a wedge-like furrow, and with a twitch of pain, he bit his underlip. "You're not listening to a word I'm saying, Jim," cried Sybil. "And I'm making the most delightful plans for your future. Do say something." "What do you want me to say?" "Oh, that you'll be a good boy and not forget us," she answered, smiling at him. He shrugged his shoulders. "You're more likely to forget me than I'm to forget you, Sybil." She flushed. "What do you mean, Jim?" she asked. "You've a new friend, I hear. Who is he? Why have you not told me about him?" "He means you no good." "Stop, Jim," she exclaimed. "You must not say anything about him. I love him." "Why, you don't even know his name," answered the lad. "Who is he? I have a right to know." "He's called Prince Charming. Don't you like the name?" This is starting to read a lot like that romance in Frozen 1 between Anna and the brown-haired dude. The Prince of Wales or whoever he was. It's like you don't even really know anything about him. You just think he's good looking. I think Dorian is better than that guy, though, based on what I'm already reading about in the book. Like, we already know a significant amount about Dorian. Dorian's one of the major characters in the story. It's like he's got a good nature. He's got a good character about him. He's more like... Yeah, he's less like that brown-haired dude in Frozen, and he's probably more like... Maybe Aladdin could be an interesting comparison. like maybe he doesn't have a lot of money, but he's a good guy. Yeah, I don't know. I can probably find a better comparison than Aladdin, but I gotta think about it. Someone who's young and good looking, like a hero. Hercules wouldn't be a great comparison because Hercules has like actual superpowers, but it's like like a normal like Dorian's like a normal version of Hercules. Like he's good looking, like that is his superpower. And he's a good guy. He's not he's not a bad guy. Yeah, like Board Fox, like like I understand where James is coming from here. He's no good for you, but based on what we already know about Dorian, like he's a good guy. He's not gonna yeah, he's not gonna like mess her life up or anything. Okay, let's see, where were we? Um, yeah, what do you want me to say? Yeah, he's called Prince Charming. Don't you like the name? Oh, you silly boy. You should never forget it. If you only saw him, you'd think him the most wonderful person in the world. I think also sometimes this happens where it's like you see your love interest in like rose-colored glasses, right? Where it's like they can literally do no wrong, and then other people look at that person and it's like what are you thinking? You're out of his league. Yeah, it's like, what are you thinking? You're out of his league. Although I don't think that's the case between Dorian and Sybil. I think that James is selling Dorian short. If only you saw him, you'd think him the most wonderful person in the world. Someday you'll meet him when you come back from Australia. You'll like him so much. Everybody likes him, and I love him. I wish you could come to the theater tonight. He's going to be there, and I'm going to play Juliet. Oh, how I shall play it. Fancy Jim to be in love and play Juliet. To have him sitting there, to play for his delight. I'm afraid I may frighten the company, frighten or enthrall them. To be in love is to surpass oneself. Poor dreadful Mr. Isaacs will be shouting "Genius!" to his loafers at the bar. He has preached me as a dogma. Tonight he will announce me as a revelation. I feel it. And it's all his only, Prince Charming, my wonderful lover. My god of graces. But I am poor beside him. Poor? What does that matter? When poverty creeps in at the door, love flies in through the window. Our proverbs want rewriting. They were made in winter, and it's summer now, springtime for me, I think, a very dance of blossoms and blue skies. He is a gentleman, said the lad suddenly. A prince, she cried musically. What more do you want? He wants to enslave you. I shudder at the thought of being free. I want you to beware of him. To see him is to worship him. To know him is to trust him. Sybil, you're mad about him. Yeah, I think this is how love works sometimes. It's like people just get like fascinated by their love interest, and it's like they're everything to me. And everyone else is like the voice of reason. It's like they haven't said two words to you, like that's how James is to Sybil right now about Dorian. She laughed and took his arm. You dear old Jim, you talk as if you were 100. Someday you'll be in love yourself. And that also could be the case. He could just be sour. He could have sour grapes because he hasn't found anybody. Then you'll know what it is. Don't look so sulky. Surely you should be glad to think that, though you're going away, you leave me happier than I have ever been before. Life has been hard for us both, terribly hard and difficult. But it will be different now. You're going to a new world, and I found one. Here are 2 chairs. Let us sit down and see the smart people go by. They took their seats amid a crowd of watchers. The tulip bed across the road flamed like throbbing rings of fire. A white dust, a tremulous cloud of orris root. That's violet scented perfume made from iris rhizomes. It seemed hung in the panting air. The brightly colored parasols danced and dipped like monstrous butterflies. Yeah, again, great comparisons by Oscar Wilde. She made her brother talk of himself, his hopes, his prospects. He spoke slowly and with effort. They passed words to each other as players at a game past counters. Sybil felt oppressed. She could not communicate her joy. A faint smile curving that sullen mouth was all the echo she could win. Yeah, I think it's like that a lot, where it's like she's in love, she's on top of the moon, I think is the expression. She's like on top of the world. She's like, life is awesome, and her brother is like over there. He's like, love isn't even real. It's freaking dumb. Yeah, that's how he is. I can relate. Like, it's not even real. It's always missing, if it were even a thing, which it's not. After some time, she became silent. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of golden hair and laughing lips, and in an open carriage with 2 ladies, Dorian Gray drove past. She started to her feet. "There he is!" she cried. "Who?" said Jim Vane. "Prince Charming," she answered, looking after the Victoria. "That's a low-slung carriage with 2 seats." He jumped up and seized her roughly by the arm. "Show him to me. Which is he?" "Point him out. I must see him," he exclaimed. But at that moment the Duke of Berwick's foreign hand came between. That's a carriage drawn by 4 horses. And when it had left the space clear, the carriage had swept out of the park. "He's gone," murmured Sybil sadly. "I wish you had seen him." "I wish I had for sure, as there is a God in heaven. If he ever does you any wrong, I shall kill him." She looked at him in horror. He repeated his words. They cut the air like a dagger. The people round began to gape. A lady standing close to her tittered. "Come away, Jim, come away," she whispered. He followed her doggedly as she passed through the crowd. He felt glad at what he had said. When they reached the Achilles statue, that's the large bronze statue of the Greek Trojan war hero which stands in London's Hyde Park. I wonder if it's still there. Curious. Yeah, it's still there. This is what we're looking at. Yeah, and I'm seeing and noticing that this statue has male nudity, similar to Michelangelo's David, sorry. Hopefully Twitch doesn't get me in trouble for that. It's art. What do you want? Yeah, it's like the concept of like censorship in art. Yeah, I don't think genitalia should be covered in art pieces. I think it's unnecessary. Yeah, completely unnecessary. Okay. Where are we? Yeah, She looked at him in horror. They reached the Achilles statue. She turned around. There was pity in her eyes that became laughter on her lips. She shook her head at him. You're foolish, Jim. Utterly foolish. A bad-tempered boy, that's all. How can you say such horrible things? You don't know what you're talking about. Do we have a mop in here? I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. How can you say such horrible things? You don't know what you're talking about. You're simply jealous and unkind. Ah, I wish you'd fall in love. Love makes people good, and what you said was wicked. I'm 16, he answered. Let's see, how does the song go? Adam's song. I think I can remember Blink-182. Never conquered, hardly came. Like that's a Jim right now. I'm 16, he answered, and I know what I'm about. Mother is no help to you. She doesn't understand how to look after you. I wish now that I was not going to Australia at all. I have a great mind to chuck the whole thing up. I would if my articles hadn't been signed. Oh, don't be so serious, Jim. You're like one of those heroes of those silly melodramas Mother used to be so fond of acting in. I'm not going to quarrel with you. I've seen him. And oh, to see him is perfect happiness. We won't quarrel. I know you would never harm anyone I love, would you? It's like he's the overprotective little brother. Not as long as you love him, I suppose, was the sullen answer. I shall love him forever, she cried. And he? Forever too. He had better. She shrank from him. Then she laughed and put her hand on his arm. He was merely a boy. At the Marble Arch, that's a monument in Hyde Park, they hailed an omnibus, which left them close to their shabby home in the Euston Road. It was after 5 o'clock, and Sybil had to lie down for a couple of hours before acting. Jim insisted that she should do so. He said that he would sooner part with her when their mother was not present. She would be sure to make a scene, and he detested scenes of every kind. In Sybil's own room, they parted. There was jealousy in the lad's heart, and a fierce, murderous hatred of the stranger who, as it seemed to him, had come between them. Yet when her arms were flung around his neck, and her fingers strayed through his hair, he softened and kissed her with real affection. There were tears in his eyes as he went downstairs. His mother was waiting for him below. She grumbled at his unpunctuality as he entered. He made no answer, but he sat down to his meager meal. The flies buzzed around the table and crawled over the stained cloth. Through the rumble of omnibuses and the clatter of street cabs, he could hear the droning voice, devouring each minute that was left to him. After some time, he thrust away his plate and put his head in his hands. He felt that he had the right to know. It should have been told to him before, if it was as he suspected. Leaden with fear, his mother watched him. It's like, why'd they wait so long to tell me? Words dropped mechanically from her lips. A tattered lace handkerchief twitched in her fingers. When the clock struck 6, he got up and went to the door. Then he turned back and looked at her. Their eyes met. In hers he saw a wild appeal for mercy. It enraged him. Mother, I have something to ask you, he said. Her eyes wandered vaguely around the room. She made no answer. Tell me the truth. I have a right to know. Were you married to my father? She heaved a deep sigh. It was a sigh of relief. Terrible moment, the moment that night and day for weeks and months she had dreaded, had come at last. And yet she felt no terror. Indeed, in some measure, it was a disappointment to her. The vulgar directness of the question called for a direct answer. The situation had not been gradually led up to. It was crude. It reminded her of a bad rehearsal. No, she answered, wondering at the harsh simplicity of life. My father was a scoundrel then, cried the lad, clenching his fists. She shook her head. I knew he was not free. We loved each other very much. If he had lived, he would have made provision for us. Don't speak against him, my son. He was your father and a gentleman. Indeed, he was highly connected. An oath broke from his lips. I don't care for myself, he exclaimed. But don't let Sybil... It is a gentleman, isn't it, who's in love with her, or says he is? Highly connected too, I suppose? For a moment, a hideous sense of humiliation came over the woman. Her head dropped. She wiped her eyes with shaking hands. Sybil has a mother, she murmured. I had none. So, it seems like Mrs. Vane had both of them, and she was not married. She wasn't married to the dad, which I think was a source of humiliation back then. She didn't know her own mother, so perhaps she was an orphan or something like that. Alright, Board Fox. Thank you for stopping by. We're about done with the chapter. Yeah, I had none, she says. The lad was touched. He went toward her, and stooping down, he kissed her. I'm sorry if I had pained you by asking about my father, he said. But I could not help it. I must go now. Goodbye. Don't forget that you will have only one child now to look after, and believe me that if this man wrongs my sister, I'll find out who he is. Track him down and kill him like a dog. I swear it. The exaggerated folly of the threat, the passionate gesture that accompanied it, the mad, melodramatic words made life seem more vivid to her. She was familiar with the atmosphere. She breathed more freely, and for the first time for many months, she really admired her son. She would have liked to have continued the scene on the same emotional scale, but he cut her short. Trunks had to be carried down, and mufflers looked for. The lodging house drudge bustled in and out. There was the bargaining with the cabman. The moment was lost in vulgar details. It was the renewed feeling of disappointment that she waved the tattered lace handkerchief from the window as her son drove away. She was conscious that a great opportunity had been wasted. She consoled herself by telling Sybil how desolate she felt her life would be now that she had only one child to look after. Like I said, empty nester. She remembered the phrase. It had pleased her. Of the threat she said nothing. It was vividly and dramatically expressed. She felt that they would all laugh at it someday. So this chapter really hyper-focused on the relationship between Sybil and her brother, James. And also James and Mrs. Vane. Mrs. Vane, it's like the Vane trifecta. So Oscar Wilde's like hyper-focusing in on the Vane family. Like Mrs. Vane, Sybil Vane, and James Vane. James shipping off for Australia, disapproving of Sybil's affair with Dorian, which again seems very much like the relationship in Frozen between Anna and the prince dude. Like it's like, let's just get married. I don't even know your name, but let's get married. And James is like, whoa, hold the phone. If he breaks your heart, I'm gonna break his face. like yeah, that's James. And the mom's just like, yeah, I don't care as long as he's got money. Put our family on the map, please, Dorian. And if Dorian's riding around in a carriage with two girls on him, something tells me he's got more money than was alluded to in previous chapters. So we'll have to see in chapter 6 where it goes from here. We'll have to see if James does indeed find love of his own and fortune in Australia. I kind of hope he does. Because, yeah, I've definitely been there where it's like, I just want life to start looking up. I don't want to be lonely forever. I don't want to be, penniless or having to scrape together ends to make ends meet. We'll have to see what happens next time on Dorian. Stormer Show signing out.